Welcome to another episode of Geek News Now Live. It's when we at Geek News Now get more now than we ever get. We're live, so it's now. I'm Chris. I'm your host, and I'm here with right now two great guests. We might have some more later. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Damon.
Sorry, Damon. Joined Geek News Now about 2 months ago. Done a lot of short things, and my podcast / YouTube thingy goes live tomorrow. So yeah, the Chronicles of Geek.
Excellent. Sorry, Cam, you're up now. Go, Cam.
Oh no, that's okay. I wasn't sure if I should wait for a cue or not.
You're fine.
But what's up, Cam of Cam and Focus here. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope 2021's not quite as bizarre as 2020 so far, but year's still early, so we'll see how that goes.
We have time. And they're both of you guys make some awesome, great YouTube videos for us on our Geek News Now YouTube channel, which if you're watching this, you might be watching us on Facebook or Twitter, but make sure you actually go and subscribe to us on YouTube so you don't miss out on any of the great videos that any of us make, because I make them too. We're all out there grinding, making those great videos for you to enjoy. So we hope you do. The topic of today's discussion is the multimedia event. That's been building for a while. We've been hearing about it. We've seen whiteboards full of stuff in the bowels of Lucasfilm, and now it's being released. The High Republic.
Yes.
The High Republic. So set, 200 years before?
Approximately.
Years to 88 years in that time frame.
Oh, okay. So they're getting right up to it, actually.
That's like the official time frame then. Did they actually lay out like to 88 years?
To 88 years. That's the official. If you go to Wikipedia, well, that's what Wikipedia is reporting. So they're saying up to 88 years. 88 before, the Phantom Menace.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, so that could be when maybe the last of the, I guess, series has to do with that. I mean, right now we are only in the first phase of this whole thing, and it's not just. Some people are likening it to like Disney's version of the EU. In a sense, it kind of is. It's Disney's canon books, but not just books. I mean, it's a slew of different stuff.
Oh yeah, it's books, it's comics, it's young kids books, it's teen books. It's across the spectrum of everything that Disney's trying to dominate right now.
A prequel and a magazine too, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about right before we started it. I was looking up just the list of everything that there was, and the first thing that they said was that a short story has been released, part of Phase 1, called Go Together. It was released in December, and it was published in the Star Wars Insider magazine. I didn't even know that existed. Probably not super essential to the overall production. I would guess like the novels are more important. This just gave people that like, hey, if you're subscribing to a Star Wars magazine, you should get those.
Time they did this. We got to go way back to that Fate of the Jedi series with the Omen, where nobody had any idea what was going on in the series unless you read a whole slew of short stories that came out in that magazine. So they've done this before, and that's where a lot of the hidden canon hides.
Yeah. Well, this is slightly different than that, but like I gotta figure that like the prequel that was just in like the Star Wars magazine, it's a nice little like, hey, you're subscribing to a Star Wars magazine, so you deserve to get like extra stuff, like rather than just like everybody else that's gonna be buying all the stuff anyway. So it's like, here's like a little gem for you. So that actually came out in December. I thought that they were starting everything in January. And so what has come out now as of in January is an adult novel, which is The Light of the Jedi, same as the Phase 1. So probably pretty important. That's like probably, but if it's got the same name as the entire phase, that novel's probably pretty important. And also The High Republic Into the Dark. Oh no, that's coming out in February. Sorry. Star Wars: The High Republic, A Test of Courage. That just came out, and I think that's a middle grade novel is what it says here. So that's for the younger crowd, I think.
Yeah.
And they got a bunch of comics coming out too.
The comics is where a lot of the content is going to be because they can pump those out rather quickly as opposed to the books.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been collecting Star Wars comics for quite a while now, and for example, like the Darth Vader run of comics that was released by Marvel, I'm talking, there was so much story packed into them, and it gives so much context to things that occur in the original trilogy and even things that occurred in the prequel trilogy, and it's it's quite useful as far as context goes for the films that come around them.
Okay. Yeah, and this is interesting because it's coming out, and these things, they're calling it a multimedia event, but for the most part, it's not being released in conjunction with media of like the kind that we're doing right now. Like nothing, you've got comics, you've got web series. It looks like eventually the one video media that might be matching up with this, it looks like Star Wars The Acolyte. And that's the Leslie Headland vehicle. That's going to be related to this as well. So, but other than that, it's kind of entirely just with the novels and the comics and that other kind of, not in like the movies or even streaming so much that I see. And
Right.
Also, Damon, we've got requests from the wonderful people. Thank you all for watching. Can you turn up your mic?
I've tried now. How's this? Is it any better?
I think that sounds better to me, but we'll look in the
That is a
comments
little
to
bit
make
better.
sure. Okay. So Cam, you've started reading one of the novels.
Yeah. The audiobook got released on the same day, and I've kind of migrated over to audiobooks almost completely because I listen to them while I drive, so it's easy to incorporate them into my day. But I've gotten up to like chapter 5 so far, and it's shaping up to be an interesting story. It's kind of contained within one small time frame as far as the first 5 chapters go. But I mean, this doesn't really count as a spoiler because it's literally the very beginning of the book.
Sure.
But it basically starts out with almost a whole system of planets getting almost wiped out. Like it starts off kind of grim. And so that kind of caught me by surprise.
It's interesting. Well, just because there aren't going to be Sith necessarily walking around, because during this time period, this is part of like during the 1,000 years where they've never seen a Sith.
Right.
Rule of 2. And so during this time, we can't expect, or at least if someone does see a Sith or something like that, they're not going to survive. But I just don't think they're going to do anything like down that road of seeing anyone from the Rule of 2. I personally doubt it. But there are still disasters and problems and disputes for the Jedi to go solve. That was actually their job. This is the height of the Jedi, so that's ostensibly what they're doing now, what they were meant to be doing, I guess.
One of the central plot lines that Disney Lucasfilm has already released is something called the Great Disaster. Literally that. It's a hyperspace disaster where a ship explodes in hyperspace and fragments of it devastate areas of the galaxy. So
yeah, and that's literally what the book opens up with.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, if they're referring to it as the Great Disaster, I think that just this one event is going to have a ripple effect across a whole bunch of different stories. I think that will be really interesting to see how it turns out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's just, I think they made, like, what do you think? Why did they decide to go High Republic and not Old Republic?
Personally, if I can inject here, it's because it hasn't been visited yet. It's a fresh territory. No fans have any attachment to it because no stories are set there. Old Republic, I can already see. I play the online Star Wars game, the MMO, and I have to turn off the chat because if I have to hear one more time who gets to play Revan, I don't care. It doesn't matter. There's already too much invested in it. Here, there's nothing. There's no stories. There's no timelines. There's no connections. We know Yoda somewhere.
Yeah, I was
We know
like,
Sith somewhere. Other than that, we don't know nothing. So I'm excited for that. It's all empty territory. Wasn't in the extended universe. It's all new.
Yeah, I think one of because but between the Old Republic and the timeline, that the films are set in, that's like a 3,500-year gap. And like back in the old EU days, there was some material that was spanning that length of time. But honestly, probably the two biggest stories that took up that time frame were the Darth Plagueis, no, not the Darth Plagueis novel, the Darth Bane trilogy, and the story of Exar Kun from back in the 90s.
Yeah, and the Darth Bane was 1,000 years before.
Yeah,
and the was even further back than that.
oh yeah, that was old. Old
Republic.
Yeah.
Maybe the Acolyte will be my dream come true of a Exar Kun film or show or something.
I think I doubt it, because I think it's well, I mean, it's set. They couldn't use him, right? Because Exar Kun is still is he
Dark Horse
around during that time?
I thought, if I remember correctly, no, I don't know. I mean, if I remember correctly, his story takes place like 1,000 or 1,500 years before Episode 1. But I mean that's just me with wishful thinking.
Well, it's definitely way before that. But again, I mean, that's all extended universe. So who knows when if they want to grab something, throw it in.
Which they do seem to be doing kind of liberally now. The Mandalorian certainly showed how well people can respond to things like Boba Fett coming back. And you might say, well, Boba Fett's an original trilogy character. And that's true, but his mythos went crazy balls to the wall insane in the expanded universe. And I know this because that's where I fell in love with him, with things like the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, which was amazing. I mean, that was written before the prequels came out. So it was like a Boba Fett before he's even like the son of Django and all this other stuff. It's just Boba being Boba and like kicking ass as a bounty hunter, destroying the Bounty Hunters Guild from within because it's a bounty that someone takes out. It's great. It's great. So like you can see where, and then to see him in The Mandalorian kicking ass, being like finally getting that justification that he actually deserved to have in Return of the Jedi. But if you know like how that was going, they had bigger plans for him in Return of the Jedi, but they could only fit so much into the film. So they were like, all right, we'll kill him. And then he's dead. It's like, no. And then obviously now.
Wait, what's that?
Yeah. he got out somehow, apparently got separated from his armor. That's a whole thing. We don't know how that happened.
Hey, there's books and novels and movies in there.
Exactly. And that's kind of now, like you said, this is a fresh kind of slate for them to go to, other than Yoda being there. I mean, they can do whatever they want with this time period.
Yeah. And I think that's the real appeal to it, is they can do whatever they want and nobody has an attachment to it. Nobody can say, well, I was expecting this. Well, all we know, there's a bunch of really powerful Jedi running around in a very happy galaxy as far as we know.
And that's part of the thing
from a certain point of view
that would make it tough, is like if everything's at peace, then there's no story, because you need conflict to create story. But as Cam said, or who said, like they already had one come out that was like the hyperspace
the great
tragedy.
Example.
And Cam, you said this first book, Light of the Jedi, starts off with
it starts off with that exact same thing. You have the ship going through hyperspace, and it's this whole you get introduced to the captain, who's thinking about how many people she's helping by carrying them around on this ship, and then out of nowhere, boom, they just hit something. You learn about the captain, you get to know her, and then out just
oh,
and then she's gone.
A Star Wars character.
Yeah. If she's a Star Wars character, she'll be back somehow.
We cloned her. Yeah. All right, so that's interesting. Do you think they're going to use a lot of Yoda, or do you think they're going to use very little of him? Like, what do you think? Because it's him because at the youngest we've seen Yoda is still pretty darn old.
Yeah.
So this will be him,
100-some-odd years old when he finally did.
Maybe not needing a cane, maybe having a more active presence. Like, who knows? Like, do you think we're going to be seeing a lot of him or no?
Well, one of the things I can see them doing is at some point in time, Yoda became the Master Jedi. Maybe that'll be one of the sublines. You know, maybe that's where there's a split with the Sith or something, and the Sith get some sort of power. Where did the gray cloud come from that they talk about in, the Phantom Menace and in the prequels? I could totally see them using Yoda as a main story arc, or completely ignoring he exists.
Well, I think that since Star Wars, for the last few years has really kind of leaned on, kind of nudging the audience, saying, "Hey, you remember this? Hey, you remember when this character did this thing? Oh, well, watch this." But I think that we are going to see him in that novel, but I don't think it's going to be something that's really, really huge. I think they're going to use him sparingly. He's going to come in, he's going to do something, he's going to say something wise, and then he'll be gone. That's my prediction.
And it looks like I don't want to go into too many spoilers. This isn't much of one because you basically just said it. But I think Deborah in the comments has also been reading the book. I lost my mouse. Here we go. Boom. So you've been mentioned a few times, but hasn't made an appearance. And that's kind of what I see him, because they probably don't want to lean too hard like on Yoda. We already have like Baby Yoda getting leaned on, or had been leaned on pretty hard. Like, is it just like,
well, I can see them using him later, like saving him. He could be like a really big part of Phase 5 kind of thing. We don't know where this is going to go, or
That's
how
true.
long this will go.
Do we even know how many phases there are?
No.
We just know that this is Phase 1. And there are more phases.
Meanwhile, Marvel's on like Phase 12 already. It's like, okay, Star Wars, you got to catch up here.
Section 4,
I call this
9.
Preparation H. We've got some other comments. They helped us fix Damon's volume. I think we got that fixed. Oh, Drunk 3PO. What a kind gentleman. Drunk 3PO is a YouTuber I know. We've done some shows together. He recently interviewed Gina Carano on his YouTube channel.
Nice.
So I'm actually hoping to talk to him soon on this channel and talk about that, and also how he got to where he is today. But nice of him to stop by. Talking about the High Republic. I hope they do something with Yoda too. Like, obviously don't lean on him like too hard. Not obviously every novel shouldn't be like Yoda's doing that, like Yoda's doing that. But eventually, at some point, maybe in a comic, let him go nuts. I want to see, like, if that's what he could do against Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Let me see, like, Yoda in his prime.
Yeah.
I think the smart thing for them to do, especially with the time period that they're working with here, I think the best thing for them to do is to like almost kind of build Yoda up in a way between, a few novels and a few comics, kind of build him up to be like this big legendary figure. And, when some of the main characters in one of the novels finally just gets to meet him, suddenly they're taken by surprise by this little green gremlin that's walking up to them.
Yeah.
Judge me by my size, do you?
Which would be actually a very nice callback to the Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great line to use.
Fans are like, yes, and everybody else is, oh, look, it's a cute little green guy.
That is actually like a really good line. Yeah, it's a callback to that. And of course, that's the assumption everyone makes with Yoda.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's also a way they can actually insert him, like a la Stan Lee, where he makes an appearance, does a quick little thing, and then is gone.
Yeah.
The characters don't know he was there.
He just does one flip, and that's all.
Yeah.
That's all we needed. And David, to answer your question, it is books and it is also comics. I believe that the first issue of the High Republic got released this week.
Yes.
Yep. For Phase 1, it's like 2 adult novels, 2 young adult novels, 2 middle grade novels, 2 young reader novels. That's a kind of a lot of distinctions. So there's like 2 adult novels and then everything else as far as like I concern things.
Yeah. Adult novels, 50 Shades of the Force.
Oh yeah. Oh, those are some real adult novels.
Yeah, you got the
go.
dark side, the light side, and all 48 shades in between.
Getting frisky on Kashyyyk. Okay. But no, that is not real. We're not reporting that they're coming out with adult novels. Just, novels for adults. There's a web series too, Star Wars: The High Republic Show, which is a behind-the-scenes web series on the official YouTube of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Bi-monthly basis, and it'll feature guests from the Initiative. They're calling it the Initiative. Almost sounds like they're supervillains.
Yeah, right.
Let us begin the undertaking. The Initiative.
Yeah. Oh, you're the Avengers Initiative? Oh, okay. Well, you know what? We're so cool that we had to cut it in half. We're just the Initiative. We don't waste our breath. Stupid Avengers.
Do you see that comment?
Oh, God.
John.
Okay, why do I have a feeling in 3 months we're going to see something about that?
Hey, bro.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Rule 34. If it exists, there's a porn about it.
It's probably already happening.
But yeah, but back to the web series. I'm actually excited about that because it's supposed to be giving us backgrounds and kind of into information as to why they're doing things the way they're doing it. So kind of to help with that uproar of the fandom going, why is it going this way? Well, this is why it's going this way. Did you notice this connection? Did you notice that connection? If you're asking this question, this is where you can find it.
Yeah, that's something that I also kind of wanted to bring up too. So something that I'm sure that you guys remember back in the prequel days, people back then had a similar argument to what they have now. We shouldn't have to read the books to understand the movies. But then like the Clone Wars came out, Rebels came out, and stuff like that, and you watch them and you have a greater appreciation for the films that that they're basically about. Well, no, with this, I think that this is going to give us a better appreciation for not just the original trilogy, not just the prequel trilogy, but the story overall. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a YouTube channel called AT Chat. He's a Star Wars YouTuber. I've been following him for a while. He's really great. His latest High Republic video, he says that news came out. I don't remember if it was about the novel that just came out or if it's going to be one of the future ones. But the characters of one of those projects visits, I can't remember what it's called, the Amaxi station or something like that, and it's the big garden space station that you saw Snoke lived on in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic series. So I know that some people are going to be like, oh, we don't want any new canon to connect to the sequel trilogy, whatever. But canon's canon, and I think that giving us greater insight into the story behind those films, in small ways like that I think is going to be a very good move for them. I think it'll appease a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the ways that I look at it, there's different levels of fans, and there's the ones who just want to watch the movies, want to watch The Mandalorian, be happy, get just enough of the story, and off they go. And then there's the fans that want all that extra detail below. Why did this happen? I know, me too. I'm only short the 3 High Republic books that are coming out, so otherwise I got every single book. It's because I want to know every detail that's happening. I want to know why the characters are like that. I'd like to know the below deck stories about all the sub characters. And there's a lot of fans that are in that in-between market that are going to sample the different things. The young reader novels, middle grade novels. I mean, let's be honest. Those novels aren't written for the kids. They're written for the parents that are going to read them to the kids. So, I mean, that's why that kind of is getting the new fans up there, is introducing fans back to the property without relying on TV, without relying on YouTube, getting the fans new fans right back into the core of what Star Wars is. I mean, it's like reading the novelization back of the original Star Wars, A New Hope. There's way more information in there about why things were than was ever shown in the movie.
What happened? Chris, you're muted.
Still? I thought I turned it back on. I hit the button. Okay. So joining us now, I was going to say on that note, joining us now, on me not knowing where my mute button is, joining us now is Black Angus Reviews. Welcome to the show.
Ooh. Hey, what's up, man? It's good to be hanging out with you. And nice hanging out with Damon and Cam for the first time.
Black Angus Reviews is a YouTube channel that I met back in the day when I was pissed about The Last Jedi, and he found me in a chat and was like, "You want to do a YouTube show?" And I was like, "Okay, neat." And that was how we know each other for back in the day.
Won the 1 in a trillion lottery then.
It was very nice. It was great. And that's actually how I ended up meeting Junk 3PO, who we saw earlier, said hey, and all about him. So that's, interconnectedness, bringing people together. It's what I try to do. So we've been talking about the High Republic. Do you have any thoughts on the High Republic?
Oh man.
Well, let me ask you first. Have you like read any of the material, I guess, or
yeah, I just did a review the other day of comic book number 1 for the High Republic series. I think it's going to be there's a lot of mystery right now because they just released that 3-phase thing, so you don't really know where it's going, and it's leading into the Acolyte to tie in somewhere. What's interesting is one of the main artist on the book, Ario, I don't know his last name, but he actually, like, someone just commented, so I'm just interacting, and he's like, "Thanks for the review. I appreciate it that you are being honest of what you think without being insulting or negative or negative." And it turns out like that's the artist.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like, when I do comic reviews, I'm not a niche comic. That's not my niche, so it never helps my channel. I'm trying to do the Star Wars High Republic for the ground level of this wave, and yeah, it's kind of cool. First time I get the Marvel artist on there. He seems to really like it over there, and his art's really good regardless of the story. What I'd say as far as the story, it's easy in this day and age to, if you're a menace especially, to see imagery and go, "Look, SJW." I try to avoid that. That's not my niche. That's not what I focus on. It takes a lot for me to like peddle that. But
it's also very polarizing when you say something like that. Like if you slap the SJW thing on there, or like the same thing that people do or had happened to me when I said I don't like The Last Jedi, and they're like, "Oh, you alt-right trash." I'm just like, what the hell? You get into these labels and these things. It's like, I didn't come here to talk about any of that. I came here to talk about Star Wars. Yeah. So I definitely understand why you would be hesitant to say that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like the end of the day, like, even if it's bad, I want bad Star Wars to be how people felt about the prequels, that don't like them, which that's my Star Wars. That's how I got into it. But those arguments, even with the political context that was like lifted from reality in history and like the current Bush administration at the time with Lucas, it was all subtle. So no one was actually saying, like, besides the line of like, "You're either with me or against me," no one ever said like, "Man, this is like some Republican or anti-Republican tripe or blah blah blah." It was just, "This is a bad or a good Star Wars movie. Here's why." Now with Last Jedi, it's become agenda or arguing that, and it's very obvious, and that's why I like The Rise of Skywalker for reasons, is that it got away from that. We weren't talking about those elements besides the China pandering at the end. But yeah, this book, it's got potential, but it's like Clone Wars.
Now, which book are you talking about? You talking about The Light of the Jedi, or are you talking about the comic book?
No. High Republic number 1. It has the same problem as Attack of the Clones, in the sense that, like, Lucas really should have shown. One of the critiques I've seen against the prequels that I agree with is that there's elements that Lucas should have shown instead of just saying it in dialogue or like throwaway exposition. And one of those is Sifo-Dyas. Sifo-Dyas is like, it took us like 10 years in the Clone Wars to get anything about him. And even that wasn't enough to really like, "Oh man, that was cool," or that really thickens the plot. It would have been cool to see this Jedi, or whether it was Tyrannus pretending to be Sifo-Dyas, using his name after he's captive to make this clone army for the Republic in secret. And this story, they hint at like what they show in the trailer, that there's like the great disaster in the Nihil, whatever that is, supposed to be this enemy instead of the Sith, because they think the Sith's dead.
Right.
There's some event that happened and they lost a master, and the main master training our main character lost an arm. He's a tradition, so it's going to grow back, but you know, so you start with this Padawan learn, and you learn these little things, these elements about other events where it's like, you should have started there. Plenty of comics start deep in the action. I was just reading Batman Hush to my kids, and it starts out with like Killer Croc and, you know, mayhem and stuff for Batman, saving someone. Then you start getting the story after you're like, boom, action. You don't have to do that, but
do you think that part of that has to do with that it is like the first issue of the first introduction to this time period of like, do you think that's why they're trying to like, do you think they're trying to introduce a bunch of stuff?
I mean, you could argue that, but like I just grabbed from Scout Comics. They're like a small indie publisher that's, you know, starting to get into more comic book stores. They got this like 4-story thing about this group of characters called Ninja Nuns, and the first story is like 8 pages, and it's like, boom, not even the main character. They're summoning some god that he mistakes for prosperity with like constipation or something. And the ninja has to save him. So it's like, you can start with action right away, or like Batman's done it plenty of times. Like, you don't need to establish things to like understand, like, okay, this is what this character's doing. It's crazy. Here's this enemy. And then start telling the story after, like, you catch your attention. Movies do this all the time in the first of a series. So with Star Wars, we know so much already about the universe, this specific era. I think it's would be smart to bring in, like, to really hook someone, because this is an initiative like the MCU, where it's like, we're doing a phase, we got multiple phases. You really need to hook us, because besides The Mandalorian, Star Wars has been on this downward spiral with the devout audience.
Mm-hmm. So let's the novel, Cam, didn't start out trying to introduce a whole bunch of stuff. You said it started out with someone dying, pretty much. You get introduced to them and then they die.
Yeah.
So like that's an interesting that like the comic apparently is trying to establish a bunch of stuff, like, and now the novel's like, let me hit you with the action kind of first.
Yeah, sort of.
It could be.
Well,
Yeah, but
I guess ask a question, but isn't it like the because there's 2 comic series coming out. There's there's the High Republic, and then there's the High Republic Adventures. Isn't the High Republic one supposed to be the background, slow drag, this is what's going on, and the adventure one's supposed to be the bang bang, shoot 'em up, let's go conquer the galaxy? I thought they were supposed to be 2 separate series exactly for that reason.
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you.
I would assume because IDW's been doing like you know that girl line that they did with Star Wars figures, the 12-inch figures, like I can't remember what it's called, but it's like cartoony style,
like anime kind of, or like, yeah, with the big eyes and
yeah, it's kind of Disney-fied,
yeah, like Pixar,
yeah, ish, but like 2-dimensional. Those that, and I think some Clone Wars stuff. That's what IDW has been doing. That's like a younger audience, is what the IDW series is going to be. It's still going to be part into the story. It's all multi-publisher initiative, but it's kind of 2 different age ranges. That's the difference. Not so much this is action, this is drawn out. Like, I don't think that should be the drive. I think it should just be more mature with Marvel.
I'm also seeing that there's also a graphic novel,
and a Magnus series,
and a manga as well. So I think they are trying to maybe target a bunch of different audiences. But like you were saying, Angus, you know, just because you're maybe targeting the adult audience doesn't necessarily mean you have to, like, you can't have action. You can't just start with that. But also, I haven't read the comic, so I can't necessarily comment on its.
Yeah, I'll give you a link. You can read it for free.
Neato. And so that one's the number 1. That's an ongoing comic. Then they have the High Republic
Yeah,
Adventure.
it's doing well on the resale
That's
market
the
because
IDW.
the first.
And Yoda's going to be in that one. The IDW. Yoda's set to appear. And that's coming out in February.
Yeah, he's in the Marvel one too. Sorry if I'm interrupting. There's some lag on my side, so.
Oh, that's all right. Appreciate you being able to come on and talk High Republic. So let me ask you this, Damon. You play a lot of the Old Republic. Are you expecting to see Old Republic stuff? And I think you already said you did see some, but you can go into more detail on that. Do you expect to see like a lot of them trying to use Old Republic stuff in this High Republic era? Either A, to appease fans, or B, just because like they can, because they can't really do Old Republic stuff right now.
Yeah, and what Chris is talking about, I play, for those of you who do play as well, Zalek-ish on Star Wars The Old Republic. If you're Imperial, let's go have an ale. If you're not, let me know where you are, and I'll take your gear from you. But it's a multiplayer game, and what I've noticed over the past year is there have been a lot of things that have shown up in the game that I'm watching. I see on The Mandalorian, or I've seen in a couple of the comics, and I've been seeing showing up in some of the High Republic material going, wait a minute, this sounds really familiar. And I think what they're doing is two things. One is they're testing it out with a known fan base. If we throw this in the Star Wars, The Old Republic, what do the fans do? Because that chat tells them instantly whether we like it or not. And then it's kind of giving them a setup where they can use it to bring the connections from the Old Republic with the Rakata, the Infinite Empire, and all the technology that they have, including time travel and the ability to create multiple force dimensions. I have a character stuck in one right now in the stupid Mindscape. If you've been there, you'd know what I'm talking about. But these things are starting to show up in this new Disney stuff that is coming out. So yeah, I expect to see some of the Old Republic items show up. I expect there to be reference to Bane. I expect there to be reference to the Rule of Two. I expect there to be reference to a lot of the original villains that are not original, but the villains that are in the original part of Star Wars: The Old Republic coming and making appearances, and some of that technology showing up. I mean, the Darksaber is not new. I have characters in that game that walk around with them.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, there's things also, yeah, like things have been passed down. Mandalorians have been around that entire time, so like they're not peace. I don't care how peaceful the rest of the galaxy is. If they're there, they're probably doing some stuff.
Vizsla in the game, Shea Vizsla is an exact copycat of the Mandalorian in the Mandalorian, like the Mandal.
Yeah.
Sorry, the name is escaping me, but we all know her. And
Din Djarin.
Yeah, it's almost a carbon copy from the game to what she is.
Okay. So probably going to be seeing references to Old Republic stuff, timelines, Rule of Two. Just because there aren't Sith doesn't mean, like, I'm pretty sure the monsters that they have to fight, or one of the things that they're going to be fighting, were created by some sort of Sith alchemy or something like that. So it's like,
well, there are two Sith
gone but not forgotten.
During this time period, there are two Sith because of the Rule 2.
There are, yeah, sure, but the Jedi don't know that.
No.
Like the Jedi, as far as the Jedi are concerned, the Sith are extinct. We haven't seen a Sith for 1,000 years, is what Yoda and Mace Windu talk about that in the Phantom Menace. So no Jedi can like meet up with a Sith, understand that they're a Sith, and then walk away with that knowledge. Because we would have seen that. So but again, these monsters that they're going to be fighting, the plant monsters, is that a thing? That's a real thing, right? They're created with Sith magic. Have we seen them yet? I think that's what the nihilist stuff is.
It's what I've understood to be alluding to, that there's definitely Sith magic and dark force magic in play. Whether by the Sith or not, maybe dark force magic would be a better way to say it's being created, as opposed to the actual Sith.
And that's true because, there are other force users out there besides just Jedi. They're the witches of Danthamir. Dark force cults and things like that. So they might not be Sith, but there are still other people out there that make trouble.
always the backup Sith, which are the Dark Jedi.
Dark Jedi. Yeah.
There's going to be somebody in that time period who did not like the rules, didn't like what Yoda was telling them, and decided to go on his own merry little way to spread the light of the Force how they think they want it to be spread.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable that storyline is going to happen.
Dark Jedi is essentially, just a fallen Jedi, a Jedi that turns away from the Jedi path, but not only like abandoning the Jedi path, but like full on
turning to the dark side.
I'm going to do my own thing and start running these corporations and like basically trying to become like a Palpatine of their own. But they usually fail because, again, they're not true Sith. They're just power crazed Jedi.
The dark side.
Dark side, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how many people still don't really differentiate between just like someone who's turned to the dark side and a Sith, because like it's like people always say you can use the Force and not be a Jedi. Well, you can also use the Force and fall to the dark side without being a Sith, because the Jedi and the Sith are religions. That's literally what they are, and you can practice the tenets of a religion without being a part of that religion, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, the example is in Rogue One. I'm sorry, forget the Force was with me. I'm one with the Force. I mean, like, he was not a Jedi, but the Force was obviously.
You're referring to the Temple Guards. Yeah. One of whom of those two, by the way, the bigger guy with the gun, he was more skeptical. He was still a Temple Guard, but he's lost his faith in that. But like, so like, again, you can like lose faith in a thing. You can believe in something and also not, you can believe in the Jedi and not be able to use the Force. There's like all different kinds of.
I can't remember where this was confirmed at, but Donnie Yen's character, he was made out to be, I think, like some kind of Force monk. He follows the wills. That's what it was.
Right.
And it's from what it seems like, especially with his character, it seems like they had a different understanding of the Force than the Jedi do. Because he seemed to be able to not necessarily use the Force, but I guess you could say that the Force was like creating miracles for him or something like that. When he was walking across the battlefield and everybody was shooting at him and not one person hit him. That's like a different type of manifestation of the Force.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's in the extended universe, but it still applies. But the Force, for those who have never been trained, and Yoda talks about this, Obi-Wan talks about this, even Palpatine talks about this, in somebody who's not been trained with the Force, is going to manifest itself as somebody who's really lucky, really good at gambling, a really good charismatic politician, somebody who just everything just works out for, or the guy who ducks at just the right time to not get hit by the paint can.
Exactly. And like I feel like it's always an interesting look at a character whenever they use the Force without thinking about it. Like if you've read the Darth Bane trilogy, in the first book, whenever he and the Gloomwalkers are taking out the Republic outposts, after being blinded by a flash grenade, he pulls off a dozen impossible sniper shots in less than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Or like I know that some of y'all don't like The Last Jedi. I love the film. Sorry, but Broom Boy at the very end, whenever he just casually pulled the broom to his hand. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know that that's the Force. He just knows that that's something he can do. And I find things like that to be very interesting. And I like watching characters like that really come into their own.
I'm not disagreeing with you by showing that comment, by the way. He just said it. And that's actually from Deadpool. He says that to Dominic.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a superpower. And then like she does a bunch of crazy stuff. And it is. So I can definitely see how untrained in the Force, it manifests itself in different ways. Again, I don't want to get into Last Jedi, but I without training, I don't think you should be able to use Force pull and stuff like that. But
a canon character, talk about Lando. One of the things that showed up in whether it's the extended universe or even the current novels, Lando always knows when to bet, and when to cheat. It's just that he always knows. He always has the hunch. Han also always has the hunch when to. I mean, these are characters that have Force abilities. I mean, I'll throw this out here. Everybody goes stormtroopers miss. No, they don't. They only miss characters that are in touch with the Force. If you want to look, go look.
Well, I got to tell you, if we're talking about how they're handling stormtroopers currently, we can talk a little bit about the Mandalorian, and they're making stormtroopers too much of a joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They have to at some point be dangerous. They have to at some point be deadly to someone. They don't do anything. And as much as I enjoyed Boba Fett coming back and wrecking them, that episode was an example of where they were just like almost comedically, ridiculously ineffective.
Yeah. You know, I understand that, you know, with a force like that, with so many people conscripted into their military, you know, it's obvious that not everyone's going to be some crack shot sharpshooter. But at the same time, that's almost always been a problem, you know, with the stormtroopers, is that they just don't feel like a threat.
Mm-hmm. No,
you know,
never have. Clone troopers, you were like, okay, I'm not going to mess with these guys. These guys know what they're doing. Stormtroopers, yeah, whatever.
And we saw, like, with A New Hope, that's where it started. Like, the main characters had to get away. And actually, in Return of the Jedi, Leia gets shot by one of them. He like goes like this, bam, shoots her in the shoulder. So always miss? No, in the original trilogy, they didn't always miss.
And in the original trilogy, in A New Hope, I mean, Leia says it was too easy. They let us get away. And 4 seconds later, Vader turns to Tarkin, one of the two, and says, "Are you sure this is going to work?" So those stormtroopers were ordered not to hit because they had the tracker on the ship. It's actually in the movie.
Yeah.
You can hear it.
Herd them to the ship.
Yeah.
Get them on the ship. I'll kill my Kenobi to get rid of that guy. High ground this biatch. And then we'll track them to the rebel base.
Yeah. And you got to think, nobody really knew. I mean, yeah, they knew who Princess Leia was. Otherwise, it was some smuggler that they didn't care about and some farmer.
And a farmer. And a farmer. A water farmer on a desert planet. You
better watch out for that farmer. He bullseyes Womp Rats in his T-16 back home.
Back home. Mentioned in dialogue.
He's no prairie farmer from Canada, I'll tell you that.
And he himself was planning on joining the Imperial Academy. Because join the Empire, join the Imperial Academy, see the world.
Be a part of something greater.
Yeah.
So so let's get back to the High Republic. That is a time period where like the Empire's not the High Republic, but like the original trilogy is a time when the Empire is in full swing, like this evil conglomerate, power hungry thing that's, you know, using slavery and doing all this kind of stuff. You would imagine that the High Republic era would be better than that. Like,
well,
but
you would think.
But they're keepers of the peace, not
they are, but they're expanding into the Outer Rim, so they're encountering worlds that don't have the the Old Republics or the High Republic's sense of law and order. They're encountering a planets that they're expanding into. That's where the conflict is going to exist.
So they're actually, part of this is discovery of new worlds and maybe getting them to join the Republic.
Yeah, and you got to figure, you know, especially out in, you know, the Outer Rim, how many of these planets have lightspeed technology before the Republic shows up and says, "Hey, we want you to be a part of us"?
Well, remember, we know it exists. The Chiss Ascendancy is out there.
Oh yeah, the Chiss. Oh, that would be. I would like to see more Chiss in general. I would like to see Thrawn. Again, it depends on how you do it. There have been ridiculous rumors flying about Robert Downey Jr. being Thrawn, and I know. I'm pretty sure one person one day was like, "Yeah, what are two very popular things? Robert Downey Jr. and Thrawn. What if I just say that I heard a rumor and then everybody picked it up and ran with it? Everybody's just like, there are rumors about this, and I'm like, no, one guy just made something up, and you guys decided to report it. But I would like to see more Thrawn, but not like." I don't even think Robert Downey Jr. would be a good call for that role. But
The only way that I would take RDJ as Thrawn is if they cast Tom Holland as Ezra Bridger.
and then people would be furious at that because Tom Holland is way too white to be Ezra Bridger.
Oh, I would love that now that you mention it, but I just don't like Ezra Bridger.
The character itself, you don't like. Not a Star Wars Rebels fan.
That's a shame. I love that show. It's like one of my favorite Star Wars things. Period.
See, I originally, when like the Clone Wars came out, I watched a couple of the first episodes and I was just like, this is not good. And then later people were like, it gets better. And so I gave it another chance and it did get better. For what it is and like what it ended up accomplishing by the end of it, I say it's good. Rebels I didn't get into as much, and I've seen people talking about, especially since like Ahsoka was now in the main and she was also in that show. There's a lot of different possibilities and everything's tying together. I'm considering giving that a watch. I will not consider watching Resistance though, so don't even get me to try.
See that. The thing with Rebels is that it starts off like any kids show. It does start off kind of rocky. The first episode, I mean, obviously targeted towards younger kids, but there are a lot of really good moments in there that the older audience will appreciate, like small subtle moments like Ezra having a precognition about something before it happens. It just kind of triggers something in your head. It's like, oh, I know why that's happening. But if you watch Rebels, just stick with it. I mean, it is a kid's show, but it doesn't hesitate to go very, very dark sometimes. It has a lot of mature themes in there. There's betrayal, people get decapitated and tortured, and I mean, it's presented in a way that it's presented in a way that feels somewhat safe, but will still challenge the younger audiences that watch it.
Yeah,
and I think that's just good writing.
I think the problem with Rebels is that, it went to Disney right after Clone Wars, and Clone Wars matured with the first audience that they were targeted at. They aged up as they progressed. Rebels has elements. It has you get to, was it Dathomir? Not Dathomir. Was it Korban? Morbin? I don't know what they named.
Malachor.
Oh,
was that where Maul was? Okay. Yeah, you get in the Maul, but the show always undercuts itself with building into Maul and Kenobi meeting, and then it's like, oh, we got our stupid droid here, the chopper, when it's like, this is getting really serious. And I get, it's a kid show, but you're already going this way. Quit, it's undercutting,
undercut.
And, and so I think the Disney purchase to carry on from Clone Wars to do that show. For me, I'm a Clone Wars fan, so I'm like, okay, let me watch Rebels, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm just drudging through the show, and it's like with Clone Wars, I always expected it to not go as hard as Revenge of the Sith or something, but to be somewhere in the middle. It does
still have a lot of dark moments, but see, the thing is, where Clone Wars has 7 episodes across which to span its story, Rebels only have 7 seasons. I'm sorry. Rebels only had 4 seasons. It didn't quite have that time to mature as much as the Clone Wars. And the Clone Wars is a series that started coming out, in 2012, I think? Or something like that.
I think it's 2008. Or no, the movie came out in 2008.
Oh, the movie came out. I remember the pilot episode. But Rebels is just targeted towards that young audience, and so unfortunately it kind of comes with the territory that a lot of those more serious story elements are kind of undercut with things to keep the children entertained, because let's be honest, kids don't want to watch a show that's 100% gritty, 100% serious, and delves too deep into stories that they might not quite understand yet. Well, they have to have that levity in there.
Yeah, you want to inject some of that. Any good story should have multiple elements. It shouldn't, if it's just one thing, then that's not good. You need to have moments of lightness to make the darkness scare. Here's a moment of levity so that later, because story is based on contrast, story happens because of conflict. So you need to have opposing forces at some point in your story, or else, and one of those opposing forces might be terrible thing and good thing, or happiness, sadness, jokes.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I think for trying to pitch the show to an adult to stick to it to get the story elements, you're going to drudge through a lot. to get to those moments. Like you got the Inquisitor duel, that was good. The build up and the finale with that, and then that's when they bring in Vader, and then season 2 you had Ahsoka Vader, and then it was just like opening like what happened. They never closed that, and then Maul and the Inquisitors and Ahsoka, and then at the end with I don't know, season 4 complete. I know there's the Ahsoka in at the finale, but I don't know how like it. I never watched the whole season. I just saw those cuts on YouTube, which I'm kind of like I don't want to stick to this show.
Well, see, the thing is, you know, you watch those clips on YouTube, and yeah, they're great clips, but whenever I watch Rebels, for me, it's more about the characters and the character growth rather than what kind of events or moments that growth leads to. If that makes any sense, like yeah, the duels are great, the action is great and whatnot, and I like seeing Ahsoka fight Vader, but moments like that aren't necessarily why I watch the show. I watch the show to go on the journey with these characters and watch them grow. And I think that the writers of that show do it in a very organic and very well paced way. Because, you know, by the end of season 1, Ezra Bridger is nowhere near the character he was at the beginning of the story. Just like, you know, by the end of season 4, he's nowhere near where he was by the end of season 1. So there's a lot of good things to gain from watching these characters mature and go through their conflicts. And I think things like that are why the show resonates so heavily with me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad just people can really enjoy and take away from that. For me, it was, especially with Filoni and the handoff, and I felt like it hindered what he could do being at Disney for a kid's show.
So we've got some different opinions on Star Wars Rebels, which is, of course...
No, I like this, though.
Wow. Yeah, it's all good. I
forgot to inject a true fan statement in there somewhere.
True fans only like this, and this, and this, and this, and not that. No.
I never buy into that sentiment, but I definitely think there are levels of fandom where it's like, yeah, you can like whatever, but then there's like, well,
oh yeah,
there's
like
levels of fandom in every franchise and stuff. Like, I really hate the people, the general fandom, like on Twitter especially, that will talk about Last Jedi, and you know they'll pick and choose a little element to validate their point instead of looking at the context of like George Lucas making stuff and where it's going now. And you know, like people like Patrick Willems, I really hate that kind of argument. It's like, well, this show's for a series for 12-year-olds to sell toys, and it's like, no, this Lucas, yeah, he aimed this at kids, but he made a series to. He's aware of like media is the next step after religion, because religion in the West is dying, and so this is a way to carry on through mythos on film, ethos for kids to kind of internalize, simple ethos and build on. And so and people that make these arguments will get into these essays and stuff about how deep X thing is that is controversial in Star Wars, like Last Jedi, and it's like it's so like two-faced, the arguments that they make. That's what really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and well, you shouldn't. Anyone that makes the argument that like Star Wars is just for 12 years, you don't need to listen to anything else they say, because they've already proven that they don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, this is part of the comic, High Republic, what we were supposed to be talking about. That the author has even come out. This is called some controversy. The author has even come out on Twitter and said, yeah, I shouldn't have done it that way. That's not really how lightsabers work.
Yeah, I said it in my review. I was like, what?
Yeah, so what happens is this Jedi is falling from this like rock thing, the spire. I think it's like a petrified vegetable growth or something like that, but still, I don't really care what it is. And people have already gotten into arguments like there are some things that lightsabers can't cut through, like Beskar, it slows them down. And I'm like, well, if it couldn't cut through it, then you wouldn't have been able to stick it into the side of the wall. And if you can stick it into the side of the wall, then it would keep cutting
down. That's the thing.
And you'd be forced out of what these. It looks, and in right here, you can see where them right there. It's like they're just chilling.
Yeah, I see. I can see it now. So some angry YouTuber is gonna read this and I can see the title now. Disney has no idea how lightsabers work, and within like 5 hours they're gonna have like 10,000 hits.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah,
even-
they already covered this. I haven't seen videos, but I've seen like Bounty in the comics cover it. But yeah, Kevin Scott has already come out and like, yeah, whoops. You know, but I don't know how, because this is a problem with like mainstream comics a lot of times is you get you don't normally have like what EVS was able to do with Jeff Johns, like they were together making their stories, and so there's feedback. But a lot of times
Right.
it's like, here's a script, here's like my panel, like boom, 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 do this.
Oh yeah,
And so there's
You
no
have an
feedback.
author-
Yeah.
yeah. It's like here's what the thing is, draw, and then they draw, and then it's like by the time you've gotten that far and you have everything else, like by the time someone gets to the point where they're like lightsabers don't work like that, you're too late. You're too late in the conversation at this point. It's like it's going out.
Well, and here, I'll throw this out. In that situation, there's 3 types of fan. There's the kind of fan that doesn't know, doesn't care. There's the kind of fan that likes me or perhaps you guys are going to go, ha ha, that's wrong, and carries on. And then there's the fan who's not a fan, who's going to sit there and pick at it forever and ever and ever. And it's like the coffee cup was in the scene and not the scene. They're editing mistakes. It got missed. It doesn't matter. Move on. If that's
Human
what
error.
yeah.
True
You need to
fans
get
know
up
how
to date.
lightsabers work.
This just shows that the people making this don't know anything about Star Wars. It's like I think they might know some things, but I'm sure also like the person drawing this, that to be a comic book artist is a requirement of being a comic book artist is not that you're a huge Star Wars fan. So someone gave you a task to draw this, and you're like, okay, I'll draw this.
With a line of notes, that's all it says. And
here's what you get. Yeah. So it's like, and that's why the guy that took the blame, and this was on Twitter, like he and like Angus said, yeah, Banning in Comics talked about it. People have been talking. I just happened to see it. I thought it was funny. But like he said, I'll take this one on the chin. Whoops. And then he like kind of gave an explanation for like, because there's things with, he said in the old expanded universe and stuff like this, there's different lightsaber intensities of the blades. You can lengthen and shorten them. There's different stuff that can occur. He said that. And then at the end, he goes, but in the end of the day, it's just kind of a mistake that happened. I hope you enjoy the comic. And I got to say that kind of response, I welcome that response. And that's exactly the kind of thing that it's not like, because we have seen these creators and people respond to criticism from fans who are just saying, hey, in this universe that I'm like addicted to, Star Wars, that's not the way things work. And we've had responses from executives and responses from people in the company that's like, screw you, or you're a bad person because you don't like this. And that is the kind of thing that turns people that just had a minor problem with one thing into like extremists that are like, well, now I'm not going to buy any of your stuff, or like because you called me a bad person just because I didn't like this. So like in this situation, very different. He said, oops, I think it's one frame of like one thing and you can get through the rest of it's not, that type of mistake shouldn't be the thing that like justifies your hatred, because there are people out there that I've already seen that are just like, this is all crap. I'm like, I don't know if you can say that because I don't think you've actually read it yet, because a lot of it hasn't come out. So like I always, that's why I wanted to hear from Cam, because you started reading it. Angus, I'm glad you could come on. And so the comic, you didn't overall like it, but you did, so you like the art, isn't that right?
That's really good. And that's before I ever interacted at all in the comments with this artist. I had no idea you'd be looking on YouTube at reviews. And
that's pretty cool.
He's actually got a few random uploads on his small channel. It's like 20 subs. So it's just kind of throwaway videos. He has one of his Dooku Hot Toys figure with two not do you call them clankers? The B1 droids?
Super battle droids.
No, not super, the B1's the regular one, right?
Rogers.
Yeah. He's got two of those posed with Dooku, and it's like, this is so cool. I got the Darth Maul one, so we were chatting about that a little bit. He really likes Star Wars. So I don't know. I assume it's probably just direction from the author, Kevin Scott. It's probably why he drew that and didn't question, or maybe there was, and it's just like, just do it, man. I got a deadline. That's the other thing we're gonna like Marvel and stuff in this initiative of Lucasfilm. That's something to take into account, because it's not like Comicsgate where you can just take your time to make something be quality with your art, you got deadlines. So, it comes with like it's a minor detail. I didn't think it that long, but I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't really work. With all the history seen with lightsabers cutting. Someone in the chat, Nabil Muhammad, said they could retcon and say it has some cortices minerals. Yeah, actually, it's funny because I think I read somewhere, I want to say Pablo Hidalgo is the explanation about like why TIE fighters, like why the Empire had the weaponry they did versus like the Jedi were the precursor of the Empire. They were in the Republic Army. What was the difference in machinery? And it's like, well, they made the TIE fighter based off of the Jedi Starfighter, not taking into account who was piloting them, for their force sensitivity. So it makes sense.
Too fast, and these people can't control them as well. So
yeah, so they actually do make retcons like that to kind of explain those, like, wait, how like this, but now we're here and it seems worse, or it seems way better than it should be. So that's the fun minutia of Star Wars, when you get these apparent inconsistencies. So yeah, they could totally say, oh yeah, there's minerals in this rock that it can slide through, but at some point it's going to stop. But yeah, it's such a minor detail. As long as they don't do something like major in a show that just conflicts with all the lore you've already seen on film, that's where you really call it out.
That's where you get into like a big problem. Yeah, because like seeing someone hang by a lightsaber blade, while like when I see it, I'm just like, that probably wouldn't happen. It's like it's minor enough that like you can find, for whatever reason in this instance, that worked. The way it did. I can move on from that. Other things I'm not gonna get into. We'll stick with the High Republic for now. But like,
I want to hear Cam. You never really got to finish what you're saying about the book. Was it Light of the Jedi?
Yeah. What was I saying?
You were talking about like we're talking about action versus like a slow build up or not really anything, and you were explaining it.
Yeah. Well, see the book opens up, light enough, I guess. You're introduced to this captain who is piloting a cruiser, taking a whole bunch of like refugees or something to the Outer Rim to start new lives or something, and she's got like 500 and something people on there. And then you learn about her personality, what she's like, her thoughts, her feelings, and then like by the end of the chapter, she's dead. And they actually pull that on you twice. The first chapter is devoted to that captain, and the second chapter is devoted to this radar tech that, is bored at his job, wants to ask out this bartender on a date, and then out of nowhere, all this, shrapnel comes out of hyperspace and just blows him away. Lots of people die in the beginning of this book. Like half the system gets wiped out.
So, and that's one of these, great destructive things. And so from that tragedy, I guess that's the inciting incident of this first phase, really. I mean, that's the thing that really pops off whatever's going to be happening. Cam hasn't finished the book. We don't want to go into spoilers right now because this, stuff did just come out the other day.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, though. That reminds me, like, that's probably one of the biggest problems about whoever Rose's sister's name was that, like, they try to, like, make you buy into this like emotional endeavor, and this like at a base level you can have like, oh, a soldier sacrificed himself for this cause, but you never know who this person is, and you have to learn later. It's like, well, I don't see any interaction between them to like invest. So even though it's kind of like, why would you make me read into someone who just gets killed off, but like you're getting in their head, so like I'm fine with that. That sounds good.
And it's also, there's differences. The differences between the media. I mean, books, just the way that they work are different than like. That's why you say like we adapted the book into a movie. It's not like we just made it a movie, because there's differences. Anyone like just in the way that you have to present it, just in the format that it takes, and then who's like directing and doing all different kinds of stuff. It's going to be, and there's things you can do in novels. For instance, Revenge of the Sith novelization, one of my absolute favorite Star Wars novels, and because it enhances the movie for me, because I watch the movie thinking about what's in the book, but not expecting to see it in the movie, because they can't do the same things that they can do in the book. But having read the book makes it, and that's really the best you can kind of hope for as far as that kind of thing. And so that's why part of the reason I think that this whole multimedia thing that they're doing with the High Republic isn't tying in for the most part like two films. It's not like this is the book of this film, like here's both. It's just like this is the comic that's coming out and it relates to like this novel that's coming out, and then all of this kind of stuff eventually is going to lead to the one film, which is like the Acolyte. That's going to tie into this. But also I'm sure if they're doing their jobs right, it's not going to entirely rely on this, because that is going to be one of the only things out of this entire phase to actually be like on a streaming service or potentially like a theater screen. So they're going to make it as like you can jump right in here. I'm sure they'd have to do that.
That's one. Oh, sorry. I was just to say that's one thing I think that, especially with Kevin Feige come over, that maybe they're cognizant of with this initiative is like, okay, we're not going to like get everyone at once. Besides like the hardcore Star Wars fans, they just want new stuff and to dig into a new era, because that's one thing I don't like is like, I don't like it that it's going backwards before the movies. I want to go forward because it's like, we know where this ends up at some point, but with the MCU, like, they did minutely for a couple of years in the comics, but they never really stuck to making the medium of comics that this is adapted from intertwine with the books or with the films. You never felt like I got to read this to really get where we're going. They would do a few like a 4-issue thing for a prologue to get some depth or something, but they never really made it an initiative where it's like capitalizing on the audience and giving them something extra. And I think this is a real benefit for Star Wars to learn with this new era.
Yes. And I think they're starting to learn, like you were saying. Damon, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was one thing just to add what Black Angus is saying is that I think that 10 years from now, we're going to look back. This is going to be a transitional period for Star Wars. It'll cover a couple years. It's kind of a way for them to politically put a pause to what's been going on. Okay, fine, whatever. We're going to end that. Here's some content. We're going to try to get the fan base to grow. It's going to be independent content that stands alone from everything. And then a little bit further down the road, we'll jump back into the future. We'll just bypass the entire Skywalker era, go 100 years from there, and we'll call it the New Republic or something like that. That's kind of where I think they're going to do with it. I don't really think we're going to see much more of the Skywalker era. Anytime soon.
I mean, we'll see. We know that a lot of the shows that they just announced take place during like The Mandalorian, which is we know Luke Skywalker exists, so
he exists, but we already know what happens. I think that's how they can keep us interested.
Okay, so you're saying that's part of the transition.
Yes,
like these shows are part of the transitional period where eventually we're getting to, and Rogue Squadron I think is supposed to take place after Rise of Skywalker, even. Which has me incredibly worried because I heard Rogue Squadron and I was like, oh boy. And I thought of all the EVA books and I was like, maybe they're going to. And then I read Patty Jenkins. She was like, it's inspired by these things and it's inspired by the games, but it's its own story. And I was like, well, at the very least, I'm kind of hoping to get a new Rogue Squadron game out of that deal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That would be, I mean, I don't know how you don't make that move as Disney. They've made, again, when we could talk about mistakes we think Disney's made. I would say one of them is the way that they've shoehorned the video games down just to EA, just to that one developer. I mean, you think about like in the 2000s, how many video games are coming out? You had like Knights of the Old Republic and Republic Commando. You had like all these different games.
Attack of the Clones on Xbox. That was my game.
Attack of the Clone. Yeah. Okay. Like, and even before that, you had games coming out on like Super Nintendo. You had like Super Star Wars. I used to play that all the time when I was a kid. You had Shadow of the Empire. All these different kind of things. And then
Lego Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars. That's like a classic. So many people just know Star Wars because
I just bought that for my son. He's 5, so he loves Battlefront. original Battlefront.
And I'm not saying that EA has done like terrible. There have been some problems, but Fallen Order was pretty cool.
Love that game.
But and when they announced Squadrons, I was hoping that was going to be more like a Rogue Squadron game.
I play.
It was for VR.
Yeah, I've played it because I've got PlayStation VR, and it's a fun game, and the story is, you know, fairly interesting. But if it's like once you get past the novelty of it being VR, it does become kind of a hollow experience. But I mean, it was fun for the time that I played it, so at least I can say that.
Yeah, and I like I would say like Battlefront 2 should have been, if you could have just make the game again, they could just remake some of these games with better graphics, and I would fork over the money just to get like
remake the original X-Wing. Go way back to the 90s. I mean, like remake that, and then it's like the TIE Fighter sequel, and then that the one where you're the smuggler kid. Like those games, put them on a real cool engine.
And so like, and I don't think that would be that hard. And when you've, you know, all made it so that only EA can like release these games, you know, you should make it so that other developers, but that's them also, you know, control. They want to be able to have that ultimate final say, and the easiest way for them to do that is to say, all right, we'll have this developer and they can make the games and they'll release what we allow them to release. But I just think it cuts down on like the amount of different games we could have. There's no High Republic games, right?
None scheduled yet.
None. That could be in another phase. That's a different. Yeah. That's preparation G. We're on preparation H.
Yeah, and we gotta remember, like, this phase only covers us to the summer, really.
Yeah, because that's what I've seen on a lot of those dates, the January release dates, and then the secondary, like the second book or whatever, was usually most of them were in July. Yeah. So the next phase could be starting potentially anytime after that, and who knows what's going to be happening. Does anyone have any closing thoughts on the High Republic? I think we've been going for over an hour here.
I want to say to everybody out there is give this thing a chance, or please don't comment. Like, if you're not actually going to watch it, read it, engage with it, like it's the same. Yeah, we know you didn't read it because you're saying the same complaint everybody else is saying.
So you're saying like don't complain about it if you haven't even given it a shot yet. I hear that. No, I totally agree with that.
If you've read it and you don't like it, that's a different story. But if you haven't taken the time and you're just jumping on the bandwagon, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna take your comment and go ahead and laugh react that, and not say anything after, because that just you know shows that I disagree with you in a passive aggressive way.
Angus.
I was going to say with Damon, I can agree to a point, because before, like, I remember when I first started following Oil Class Bullshitters, getting into specific Star Wars community stuff, the Menace. Before it was like, okay, all right, let's go into it, give our take, and then you can see the argument having digested the product, and that should validate our position. Even with that, you had the media spin against people, you know, this isn't supposed, all that stuff that you hear as a complaint. And so that jades people when it's like, okay, I actually gave it a chance, here's my response, and it's the same whether I watched it or not, you know, or read it, whatever. Right. And so now you hear like the spoilers for the key points to argue about, and so you just react to that. And so it's like, well, this is what I don't want, this is why I'm not engaging. So that feedback is just to a degree, but there is the kind of thing that I try to avoid, the grifter clickbaits and all that. Let me jump in on just having heard this, the hearsay. So I agree with you, but it's only to a point. I think there is justification for fans that are fans of any franchise to hear about the major developments that they haven't digested themselves and reacting like, well, this is why I'm not engaging now. This is why I'm not buying. Quit doing this. You know, so I would say the High Republic got to give it a chance because it's just starting, but there is a track record for fans any way, whether they like it or not, to think like, okay, this is stuff I like that you've done already. I'm going to keep doing it just from hearsay. All right, I'm with it. Or I don't like it, and so I'm stopping, and I keep hearing you're still doing this. You're losing my money. Please stop it. So there's a justification across the board. But there is definitely what you're kind of pointing to, the grifter problem of just commentary without any investment.
Anyone can say whatever they want, obviously, like whatever. but it's, you know, you were both making good, everyone made a good point on that, actually. Like, if hey, I'm looking up this product, I'm trying to think of whether I should buy it or not. If you hear things about that product that you don't like, you can say, well, I don't like the idea of that, I'm not going to buy it. But also, to Damon's point, if you're just out there yelling into the wind about how terrible something is when you haven't actually even watched it, that's another side of that. But you get all kinds out there. You never know. Just use your best judgment and try to make up your own mind for yourself, and don't worry about necessarily what
Whether or
people
not
are yelling about on the internet.
Yeah, after so long, I just kind of stopped engaging in discussions like that because
And that's sad. Yeah. Well, yeah. In discussions like that, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Be discerning. Don't waste your time where it's not necessary. I've done plenty of that. I have been in plenty of unnecessary arguments on Facebook, on YouTube, all over the place. And it took me longer than I am satisfied with. I still sometimes catch myself. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? Why are you engaging this nonsense? It's not doing anybody any favors. Move on with your life. And so that's
exactly. Well, in the Star Wars Geeks Unite group, literally all it takes is for me to say, "I love The Last Jedi. I think it's a great film," and then everybody comes in with
some places,
let's point and laugh at this guy.
Triggered.
He likes Star Wars.
That's not what we do here, and I appreciate you guys coming on and everyone being respectful, because I know some people did have different viewpoints. That was actually interesting discussion you guys got into about Rebels. Now I want to watch it just so I can have a conversation with you guys again just about Rebels.
Hey man, I'm all for it. I am all for it.
I own
can talk
3.
about that show for days.
I own 3 of the first 3 seasons, so I've invested in the show to give my feedback. So
so Damon and Cam, you can always find them on GNN on our YouTube page. Cam is doing the Cam in Focus videos. Damon has just started a new podcast. First episode's coming out tomorrow, and he's made some other great videos for our channel. And Black Angus, would you like to tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Angus Reviews, and of course here on YouTube, Black Angus Reviews. Pretty much Star Wars channel. That's like my bread and butter. Good and bad takes on Star Wars, depending on how you feel about Star Wars. With Cam being Last Jedi fan, there's actually things, and you look way early in my channel, that I give credence to with Last Jedi. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but you didn't actually stick with it. This could have been a cool way to break out of the box of Star Wars that's established. And that's probably the biggest thing that irritates me, not the Luke or Bray or Leia, none of that. It's like some story elements are like, wow, this is a cool concept, and you didn't do it. So
hey man, if you ever want to have a discussion if you ever want to have a discussion about that, I am
I got a list.
I'm all for it.
Entire list we can talk about ideas that Disney did not talk about.
But yeah, no, I'm trying to rebuild
future how to fix Star Wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm trying to rebuild my channel because I've been very infrequent over 2020. And so I'm trying to do a video every day or a stream. And I just did one about High Republic author Justina Ireland and my issues with that. In connecting that with Star Wars theory. So you might find that interesting. But I have a DCEU or DC multiverse video coming up about the rumor of Batgirl Beyond. And I think you'll find it interesting because I'm Phantom Menace. I'm a Snyder Cut guy to some degree. But I'm actually interested in the idea if they can do it right. So be on the lookout for that video if you're interested in DC stuff.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's me. You never know what's going to be on my channel. But I like to have fun. I like to have conversations, and I don't hold back. I don't always go with the flow of my peers. So, I always try to have integrity with what I'm putting out.
Awesome, man. And hey, that's one of the reasons I felt comfortable having you on the show, because you never know. I know you, and so I knew you would. There are people out there that wouldn't be respectful, and I would just have to boot them off the show. But but I try not to have those people on the show in the first place. So again, thank you all for being respectful, having a good time, talking about this. Damon and Cam, if you guys want to say something.
No, it was great being here. I love the discussion. I mean, when you get rid of what I think the quote was, the grifters, whatever. Yeah, let's get rid of them, and we can have all the discussions we want, and they'll be great, just like we did here tonight. It was wonderful. I liked it.
Absolutely agree. I love having these kinds of discussions with people who might not necessarily be like-minded, because obviously not everyone's going to agree with me, but just good discussions, good debates. That's what I want, and that's what I'm getting. So thank you guys very, very much for that.
That's what I was aiming for with this whole thing. So I'm glad that we got some people on here that could do it rationally. I've been on YouTube shows where it did not go this well. So especially as soon as you say something like The Last Jedi and you have anyone on different sides of that issue, you never know where things are. Like now that we've had a little bit more time, people have had a chance to calm down. It's not like the topic anymore. People are usually able to go, but I swear to God, like you said, Cam, it's enough to just drop that. You can say I like it or I hate it, depending on what group you're in. People go nuts.
Yeah, that's not very true fan of you.
Man, I can tell you with Rookie Critic, when me and him were like co-hosting on his channel with live streams and trying to network and stuff, build our channels. Probably not even halfway through the year when we were starting this, he's like, "Oh my God, Last Jedi, I'm just like, I'm so tired of this. I don't care. Like, it's over. Let's just talk about something else." And they just get stuck. And I'm like, and you can't leave because it's his show hosting people.
It happens. Like that movie or hate it, it does bring out passionate responses. But anyway. And look, we ended up talking about, even though we're supposed to be talking about the High Republic, but we also had a great conversation about that. I want to thank everyone who watched and commented and was here supporting us while we were talking about this stuff. And you can look forward to more Geek News Now live episodes. We're going to be talking about whatever's happening in the geek world. And I'll be hosting, and we'll have some great guests on, and we're just going to talk about it, maybe see some of your comments. But we'll be right here on Geek News Now Live. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, we're going to be on all three going forward. So stay tuned. Make sure you hit that, smash the subscribe and the like button, and, comment if you feel like it. That's all the stuff I'm supposed to say, right? I think so. Okay.
Something like that.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.